Welcome to the Pie Guy Podcast with your host, Matt Walker.
Welcome, everyone, to the Pie Guy Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Walker. Today, we're joined by Dane Storrusten, Vice President and Creative of Brand at the NFL. Dane's been behind iconic NFL team logos, uniforms, and campaigns like NFL 100. Originally from Great Falls, Montana, probably the first Montana person I think I've ever spoken to. He's worked at Microsoft, founded Gridiron Labs, which I used to really be a big fan of, and co-founded Soul Cake, a design consultancy focused on sports and entertainment. Here's a tidbit from AI, which I like, so I was going to keep in. He even played basketball with NFL legend Barry Sanders as a kid. I don't know if that's true. Yeah. Yeah, that was,
deep.
It does, right? And then this one I wasn't going to do. It's kind of corny, but I was like, let's dive into Dane's journey and his vision for sports branding, !
Nice. I could do that.
Yeah, there you go. How you doing?
Good, man. Yeah, thanks for having me. I know it took us a while to get connected, but glad to be here and chat with some fellow sports designers. So.
Yeah, I think it's great. The podcast, you had mentioned you heard one or two of them. I try to connect with people that I've known, whether through social media or life or whatever, and people that I'm really impressed by, and I think they have a great either amount of work or things they've accomplished. And I just love to have them on and talk and kind of see how they got where they got, and just kind of a freewheeling conversation. So why don't you introduce yourself? Just you're at NFL, just maybe the little pitch of what you're doing, what you're working on there, and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, you did good with the intro. Yeah, I've been with the NFL about 8 years. Took a kind of a wild path to get there, very unplanned and unexpected. I'd say my journey there has been fairly unexpected as well. I've started kind of working with a little digital team and have kind of grown into overseeing a full department, including, NFL Network, our direct-to-consumer business, our fast channels, all our owned and operated digital channels as well. So I get to touch a whole lot of NFL stuff every day on the media side. And then I also collaborate with our partners in New York and work on other specific campaigns around our events like Draft and Super Bowl, and from time to time, team brand identities.
Oh, nice.
And some other things. So yeah, it's a pretty well-rounded gig, and I'll be honest, I make up some of my projects here, right? It's a sandbox, so I feel like I eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff, and so I'm always looking for ways to enrich my experience while I've still got it. Outside of the NFL, I would say, I'm a practicing designer. I do brand development every day still to some degree, and experiment and do photography. I'm an artist and illustrator as well. So I stay in touch with my skills quite a bit, and really try to focus on being a better storyteller, better presenter, and yeah, just getting inspired, really.
Yeah.
So.
Well, one of the things, and like, we've never really spoke before, but we've kind of known each other online and things like that. But I loved when you got this job, because to me, you're a designer's designer. Like, you love it. You can see even in the things that you'll post, if you still do. I saw you did something for like the Detroit Pistons because you just wanted to try it. Like, that's like a real designer's designer, where you love it, you breathe it. And it's refreshing to me because, I was at ESPN for 10 years and then Sports Illustrated and all these things. And a lot of times these really great spots don't go to people that were, doodling on their textbooks and stuff when they were younger, drawing logos or whatever. Sure. So I feel like you are the person that all of us that really love sports were. Like, you're very good at it, but also you love it. It's part of you. Like when people ask me what my hobbies are as a 50-year-old man, I kind of laugh. I'm like, well, it's logos and, branding stuff. And they're like, but that's your job. I'm like, yeah, but it's my hobby. That's kind of where my brain is. And I feel like you're kind of in that mold.
100%. I mean, you nailed it. I get asked that all the time. What do you do? What's your hobby outside? Well, I design.
Exactly.
Stuff for sports and entertainment, as boring as it sounds, but I do think an obsession over the thing you're designing for is important. It certainly opens up a whole new level of discipline, certainly for what you do, and it raises your bar for sure. And I think my career being as long in the tooth as it is now, I mean, I look back all the time and go, well, yeah, if I spent this much time focusing on this one thing, I ought to have I ought to create a hit every now and again,
Yeah.
or that would be really sad. That would be a really sad existence. So that's what I always tell like younger designers. I'm like, yeah, well, if you focus on something for 20 years, I hope you have something hit once in a while, not that everything does certainly, but so that's kind of what keeps me going. It's a whole bunch of journey and some nice little wins here and there that kind of keep the fuel tank full.
Well, it's true. I mean, I went back to ESPN and I had this kind of interesting job there where I had to figure out what it was, but it was kind of taking all the logos for every team and creating a database. But then I created this system called the Six State where because everyone only uses 2 logos, right? And I came up with this system where you're on 6 different backgrounds. So it's like on white and on black, because that's all mobile, right? And all computers. And then after that, TV is always on primary 1 or primary 2. So it's that, and then one color on white, one color on black. So in doing that, it was funny because I wasn't designing things, but I was like, kind of your point, I was just doing this thing that I do in my head, which is whenever I turn on the TV and something's off, the logo's not right, it's not the right logo, the background is off, it bothers me. And it was pretty much like weaponizing this thing in my head that I think all the time. And then, like you said, eventually you're just going to turn out hits because you love doing it. And it's just how your brain works. It's funny. This was always the thing to take away from doing work or doing school work or whatever. And now it's like, oh my gosh, I put in 70 hours. I didn't even realize it because I really love doing it.
Yeah, I mean, you have little waves of it. I feel like where you just like you can't wake up without an idea, or you find a cool little series to work on, and it has some longevity built into it. If you do something for a team, and you can do that same thing for 32 other teams in the NFL's case, like it becomes a really fun kind of long-term passion project.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's and when you're not in that mode, you're out there looking for problems in sports. Right? You're looking for issues, or you're looking to kind of clean things up. And it's interesting following sports trends because I don't know. I feel like just in 20 years or so, you've seen it go back and forth.
Yeah.
So many times from more extravagant, more illustrative, back to super simple Bajas.
Yeah.
And kind of starting to bleed back in again to something that's a little more flavorful and soulful. But so there's never a dull moment, really, I think, in sports and entertainment. And it's just when you have, I think the excitement comes from, I'm guessing, I'm imposing this on you, but the excitement comes from like fans. There's nothing like fandom. It's crazy. We've all worked in the design field for many years, and you're always designing for customers of a product. And like designing something for fans is a whole different thing because they're so insatiable and just always want more. It's never enough. And I mean, talk about sacred, right? There are just sacred things about brand identities, and it's not all about the best graphic design all the time. It's there's meaning and symbology and history and everything behind all these things. So it's very high risk, which I find exciting about it. And believe me, I've been through my phases of posting stuff I thought was the greatest thing since sliced bread, and only to have it completely thrown back in my face and backfire because that particular fan base, I stepped on something I wasn't supposed to step on or whatever. So I don't think you can teach that kind of training when it comes to sports and building brands in sports.
No, like you said, It's what they're willing to accept. Like you might come up like I think the perfect example is like the current Rams uniform. It's you look at it and I'm like, it's really nice. But
Yep.
then I look back and I see like Eric Dickerson and I'm like, that's the Rams uniform. So it's weird. You could even solve it, but there's this thing, and some teams can get away with it. Like the Lions, they did modern with tweaks. It worked.
Yeah.
But it's weird. Like you said, you only will know when you throw it out there and you kind of just see what comes back, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's like minimalism, understanding tradition you're building upon at the same time.
Yeah.
Like I think there's a groove you can get it. It just takes a long time to understand that because everything's so exciting when you have a rebrand in front of you or something. You want to change everything and you want to put your fingerprint on it and all that good stuff. But I think you tend to start to find a groove of where, like, hold on to as much brand equity as you possibly can. Make these obvious updates, like this thing needs to look good on television in 3D. Now on this crazy broad media landscape that it never had to do before, right? There was a one point where a logo had to show up as a keyable, in the center of the screen, and that was it, and probably on some t-shirts and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And now it's like this thing has to shape shift and be 100 different things in the period of 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Because of the richness of the media that we've gotten. So yeah, you got to start building things a little more modular and responsive. And so I find that part kind of fun on, we don't get to do brand new rebrands every day in sports and professional sports, especially. So they don't come along all that. So what do? Well, you find ways to make the brands that exist a little more responsive to the environment they're in and that kind of thing. So that keeps me busy. Anyway, and
what was your favorite one that you worked on, or can you say that, or I don't want you to
like brand, like team brand?
Yeah, for which one? Because I'm seeing the Charger one over your shoulder, and that to me was perfect. The only problem I had, and I was talking to Todd Radom about this. Do you know Todd Radom?
Yep.
Okay, so he loved it. He said it was perfect. My only thing was I thought the rounded numbers, I thought there should be more of a squaring just because lightning bolts aren't round. Other than that, it absolutely perfect. It actually took the brand and made it better. The way they brought in the pants and that it's really sharp. It's really perfect. Did you work on that, or what was your favorite one so far that you?
That's probably the most complete one I got to work on. Just because I came in at the right time, and I'll call out Molly Wilkie was directing that one initially, and it brought me in. I lived in LA at the time. Both teams were kind of rebranding about the same time, so they wanted some differentiation there. So I got to take a crack at it, and I think it was hard work to kind of keep that bolt and not change it too much. It spent a lot of time just kind of focusing on, hey, don't lose all the equity here. Let's refine. Of course, we went very broad with it as well, and went into the wild card arena with it. But I'm very happy. I would say it was a success given the magnitude of it and all the compromise that has to go into something like that to kind of end up where it did.
Yeah.
You have to take your wins on something that's got that much visibility. So I think it turned out good. I think the uniform system sampled its history pretty well, gave you a little bit of everything. I would say maybe there's one too many uniform options in the closet.
Yeah, maybe, right? Maybe a little too Oregon kind of sometimes.
Yeah, well, and you have teams that kind of have, that they'll have color rush and an alternate. And it's like, they kind of the same thing. They weren't really thought of as a unit. They were just kind of ushered in and godfathered in kind of. So there's some things I'd probably adjust there, but generally, like I see your point on the numbers too. Like I'm a traditionalist. I love big, sharp, traditional block numbers on football uniforms. It's just what I love.
Yeah.
And I don't like fancy numbers and nameplate fonts and things. I like it. I think the Dolphins throwback is one of my favorites because that
Yeah.
massive nameplate on the
Yeah.
back.
Beautiful.
And like I'd call out like the Jags with their big
Oh yeah.
numbers are just gorgeous. So I like
Yeah.
that's if I had all the choice in the world, I would go someplace like that. But yeah, I'd say still that's probably my favorite one. I've worked on a few others, Colts and Browns, and
The Colts were nice because they
but
didn't. If you weren't paying attention, you didn't realize how many things changed. But I always loved that font, and I'm a diehard Jet fan. I always wanted that font for the Jets because I thought it really felt like the Namath era. But the fact that the Colts did it, it was perfect. It's kind of a classic varsity block, but it just has those little serifs or whatever you call them, and it's just beautiful. And yeah, the second marks and. Oh, it's just a beautiful brand. They did such a nice job with it. And two color, which when the Jets went to two color in the 90s, I love that white was the second color. That's hard to do.
It really is.
And it's beautiful. I loved it. And, the last few years they've been a little all over the place. But to me, just give me that Parcells era with like a lighter green. I actually thought the perfect one, and my kids, they're all diehard fans. The ones they wore last year for it was like the throwback Namath era ones. That was probably perfect to me. That's classic Jets.
Yeah, and then, white face mask comes back. For the Browns and Jets too, which is just instant. Yeah. And it's crazy. This is what I love about the NFL. I'd say pro sports in general is like fans get that stuff really. Yeah. Fans can feel a white face mask versus a color face mask because it's just. Tattooed in their brain, right?
Oh yeah.
From an era they appreciate or where they started becoming a fan, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, like those simple things. It's just a beautiful thing when like fans can care about those kinds of details. I mean, what more could you ask for?
Yeah. Well, I remember growing up, every team I ever played football for was a white mask, and I would get annoyed. And I loved when the Chargers went navy on navy. And I thought that was so great, but it's funny how times changed. Now I see navy on navy, and I'm like, oh, just too dark. And I used to love that dark look. I love the dark look for the most part, but like you gotta be sparing with it, right? Like it's got to be done right,
Yeah, I mean now with multiple lids for teams, like they've got the ability to kind of do that. Well, they did even before that, with as far as faces are concerned, but. So yeah, that's opened up a whole bunch of variety. And like, again, this is me speaking. I'm not speaking on behalf of anything else. But I would say, like, again, I'm a little bit more of a traditional when it comes to the uniforms. Like, I think there's a limit on closet. I'll use the NBA as an example. There are times I turn on an NBA game and I'm like, who's playing right now? Black team and the red team. And it's like the Celtics and Pacers. And you're like, interesting, but at the same time, I don't live in Indiana or Boston, and I don't eat, sleep, and breathe green and white, all day. So that, from a sports fan perspective, it might feel like a little much, but for the fans that are, that have season tickets and are watching 90% of their games in the, traditional homes and aways, well, all of a sudden that's a treat, right? That's a dessert for them. So,
but it depends, right? I think the city uniforms in both NBA and MLB, because MLB actually to me is worse. Like some of the things they've been wearing recently, I'm like, what is, like, I'm a Yankee fan and they don't really do anything, and I kind of like that.
Kind of respectable, yeah.
It is, but that to me is like the Celtics should be in that same. The Celtics should be in that same category. To me, the Celtics uniform, because I live in Connecticut now. I'm originally from New York, but the Celtic uniform to me is as timeless as the Yankee uniform. It's perfect. And I don't mind when they bring in some black, but they get a little crazy and they were doing neon green. And it's like, all right, guys, like, I don't mind trying something, but let's, and then maybe 3 uniforms a year, not like 7 or 8 because I'm also a Nets fan, and a friend of mine, she's the head creative over there. And we've had the conversation where those uniforms have gotten wacky. Like it's like a Crayola crayon box. And I was like, you have like the best, like that old Dr. J uniform to me is one of the great uniforms of all time. I'm like, you have these great elements and they're kind of disappearing, so we can do this. I don't even know what it is. I don't know if it's like a local designer or something, but I'm like, let's just keep it in the brand. But then, you could try some things, but like, let's keep it kind of somewhere. Like, I don't know if it was Indiana, the Indy jerseys they're wearing for basketball.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like looking at it and I'm like, what? I don't, this is Hoosiers. This is the land of Hoosiers. We should be more classic. We shouldn't be wearing like weird 90s like scripts, and it just looks really tough to me.
Yeah, I mean, the same time, you're on that team and you get a new uniform idea thrown your way, you're like, you're going to go for it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah.
I don't know. Like I always try to check myself too. And I'm always like, well, what would I be so conservative if I had that project thrown to me? I probably might reach outside of my comfort zone and do something crazy too. So like I completely get pushing the boundaries a little bit, but yeah, I guess personally speaking, I'm a little more of a traditionalist, and I like things to generally stay in the same atmosphere as the brand. But there's definitely a new wave of fans out there, man, that see it differently. Things are here in a moment and gone the next. Like that's that instant gratification and sometimes disposal is just the way things are now, right? It's like, you're not forced to look at the same uniform for 2 straight decades anymore. It's like, those of us who came from that era, certainly, but yeah, it's kind of fun.
Well, it's funny because I tend to be a little more, I'm a little more like, you could push the boundaries. You could try something like, it's not going to kill the brand for 1 year if you try something, but I'm on all these sports uniform, like Facebook groups, and every one of them are like, anything from the 80s, they're like, this is it. This is the uniform. Nothing changes. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, like when the Edmonton Oilers or even the Islanders, and they're like, we're bringing the exact same thing back. And you're like, not even a little tweak to like something mod. And they're like, nope. I'm like, not even a font change. Not even, and they're like, nope, exactly the same. And I'm like, well, there's a reason you got rid of it, because everybody got tired of it. And it didn't sell very well. Yeah.
Running on pure nostalgia. Like, yeah, it's interesting. I have classic stuff all over the place back here. So I appreciate it, and I loved the logos that were on my bed sheets and everything. In the 80s, but would you bring that back full time? Well, you'd probably ruin it if you brought it back full time. You have to kind of ration this stuff out.
I still think though that Ram helmet, that's an untouchable, because everybody, like when you have one of those logos that, like, if you go throughout high school and youth sports and everybody's using it, like you might not want to touch that one. Like that horn is, it's just gorgeous. And I think of Jerome Bettis, the battering ram, and I think of just there's something so iconic about that. So I do like the new one. It's beautiful, but I'm like, that old one. And I even like the all yellows. I thought those were sharp.
Kind of school bus yellow. Yeah. The important thing, like from brands that came from the 60s, like especially with helmets, those logos on the helmets and those helmet schemes were really limited by what you could die cut out of vinyl.
Yeah.
It was like you didn't have multi-layer printing on vinyl much back then, right? It was, you had to stamp these things out of a solid piece. Vinyl, a lot of this stuff came from that. Striping certainly was the easy one, right?
Yeah.
So when we post rationalize these decisions, it's kind of interesting. I hear people talk about like the 60s brand and what was going on behind it and the symbology. And I'm thinking, like, in the back of my head, I'm like, they just kind of wanted a roaring lion, and that's kind of what they could make out of vinyl at the time, right? It's like, and that was the purpose behind that simplicity. And I love that about it too.
Well, that's the thing is when, being someone that's worked a lot with mobile, when I used to do all the fantasy stuff, like you realize that, you got, these things have to work. Any logo that's not square, like the Jets horizontal or the, the Seahawks or anything like that. You want that square logo because it's just so hard not in that space. So when you get these simple more squared logos, like it actually works better. So the things that limited them like material wise back then, actually now, because we're using them at all these sizes, it still stands up pretty good because it's just simple. It's square. It's not, we're not getting too fancy. My dad, he grew up a Dodgers fan, and they left Brooklyn, and they swore off baseball. But that's a perfect example of the Dodgers B was never the same as the Red Sox B until one year. Someone found out it was cheaper because the hat company was already using the B for the Red Sox, so they're like, "Yeah, just throw us that one. It's fine." Nobody noticed.
And call it a day.
Yeah, call it a day. They're like, "Oh, that's the logo now," and I'm like, "It's not. Like it looks a lot different, but nobody notices or cares." And to this day, they still think of the Red Sox B as the Dodger B, but it really isn't, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, what a time that we can pour over the nuances and details of letter forms and outlines and key lines and like all the things. It's why I have a whole office studio here full of uniforms and slight variations of hats and
well, even that hat's really nice. Did you do that?
No, this is a studio called La Visual. They're an LA studio, and I happen to have this laying around, and it's kind of my favorite hat just because it's simple.
It is. It's so clean. I keep looking at it. I can't look away. I love how the L comes
I didn't design the logo, Mark, but I do appreciate it. So I like to not wear my own stuff. I like to wear other people's great work. So
yeah, well, it's funny. Like I
tattoos,
won't like even with my kids' teams though. I usually won't wear a logo of the team unless it's a logo I did. If it's like local. Just because like some of the local stuff is like, but to your point, I won't wear my stuff ever. I'll wear, like you said, there's something nice someone else did, and I want to show it off. I remember there was a time where T-shirts were really hot, like 10, 15 years ago, where people were putting out shirts, and I had so much pride wearing like something great that someone I knew did. I just thought that was, what a great. You just had so much pride knowing that you wore this T-shirt. Like Adam had a great one, and Frazier used to have some great ones, and you just felt so much pride wearing a great shirt that someone else could put together. It just looks so great, and people would always ask you about it, where you got it, and you just felt, cool. Like, oh, this is my friend. It's just a nice thing.
Yeah, I had a series of these I did for a while that were just giveaways. They were just like really, really limited, but like, stuff like,
oh, beautiful.
This, this is pretty old now, but I'd do a handful of these. I have an embroidery guy here. We just do a couple of test runs just to kind of feel it out. And I really enjoy doing it. It's enough for you to go out and be like, is that a hat available? Like, no, just a one-off. It's a prototype. Well,
that's the thing. Like, that's beautiful, and I've seen
it's rarity.
The Browns are a funny brand where I've seen people like yourself that just do something like that, and it's so they make so many iconic things like that, and you just wonder. I've never seen anyone like buy one, but like that one, the minute you showed it to me, I knew it was the Browns. It was beautiful. I mean, but that's the other thing too, is like there's opportunities that if you lived in Cleveland, you could sell all these things that, nobody owns. Yeah. And you could actually, that was another thing I always thought would be cool is the Rangers used to have actually they got bought. They had a really cool like sort of merch thing that would make Ranger products that never said Rangers on it, but you knew what it was about. And it was kind of like that. And they ended up buying the company, and now when you go to Madison Square Garden, there's a whole line in there, and pretty much they got rid of all the originality. But I always thought that was a cool sort of way to, get around the copyright stuff. You're not taking advantage of anything, but you could be really creative in that one little area, and then you go to the stadium and you see other people wearing it, and it's like a niche kind of thing. I always thought that was kind of a cool way to. Even expand fandom while you're doing something fun, because there's a lot of fun things that could come of that, right?
Yeah. I think that's starting to get more interesting, like third parties being able to do things that with a little more flavor and soul to
Yeah.
them that you might not see at the kind of tier one retail level.
Yeah.
A little more underground, obviously doing it properly in the confines of the right licensing and everything is
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
important. But I see leagues taking on more opportunities like that to kind of just expand the brands.
Yeah.
These little things are like experiments in my home, right?
Yeah.
That I buy with my own money, but like just to see it, and that's it for me. I just want to see what it looks like. I don't
Oh yeah.
need anything from it, but um, yeah, it's kind of cool, and just the ability for the average everyday person to be able to go out and make something's crazy with 3D
Yeah. Oh
printers,
yeah.
all
It's
of that
amazing.
now, and the
Yeah.
crickets of the world and these kinds of
Yeah.
things. So, I mean,
Did you get
yeah.
into that at all, or
What's that?
did you get into cricket at all, or?
I do. Yeah, I have a couple of them. I got the Pro over here that I use for most things, kind of that are not large format.
Yeah.
Um, I have another one that I don't use often that's for large signage, but I don't really do a bunch with it like professionally yet.
Yeah.
I plan to, but the Cricut Pro gets me along quite a ways. Like I do graphics on my vehicles and motorcycles.
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah. You can
Wow.
you can do just about anything there. They have their sort of T-shirt um, device and everything too. Like they're starting to like it's pretty good. Like
Oh,
for
it's nice. And it
yeah,
lasts longer
for
than I
most
thought in the
things you need to
wash.
do.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it like ultra professional level stuff, but
No.
the vinyl decals are as good as anything.
Yeah.
If you're using their smart vinyl and stuff. I mean,
I
I've
used
really been
my son, I coached him on this team, and they had given him, I think he lost the practice jersey the team gave him or something like that. And so I just bought a blank Adidas jersey, and I just decided to use like the font I wanted to use and his name on the back. And it was like, I figured, oh, this will get, beat up, whatever. It didn't. It stayed. And even the word mark up here and all the, like,
oh, it was like a
I
mesh
thought when I
jersey.
picked at it, it was easy. It was easy to do. It was amazing. I couldn't believe it. I gave it to someone else that would get more use out of it, but I loved the concept of it. I think if the kids were younger, my kid by that point, I have 4 kids. My youngest now is in high school. I think if they were younger, I would have got a lot more out of it. But it's
Oh yeah,
amazing.
yeah. I mean, it really is. Like if I had this when I was growing up, that's all I would have done. I
Oh my
probably would be,
gosh, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, especially helmets and stuff. Like I remember I played for this team, and after the season, I started using like electric tape to try to do like a double letter like
Yeah.
thing. Like I don't know the heck I was thinking, but I thought by using the electric tape, I could do an S and a T together, and it was pretty crazy. But yeah, it's amazing what you can actually do from that. Um,
Do you know the badass masks guy?
oh yeah, he's made many masks for me.
Oh, has he? Okay,
So I actually did his
that's cool.
logo, and to this day, like he'll ask me for work,
I
and
was
I'll
gonna.
do it for him, and then he'll make me custom masks, and my kids have been wearing them. It's amazing. It's like the coolest thing.
Yeah, so that would have been. I mean, that would have been amazing. I mean, I was trying to do that when I was in high school. I was cutting up standard face masks with my dad's saw in the garage, repainting them, right? Which, with like Krylon,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah, like sanding them down and repainting them. Uh, I didn't do a whole lot of welding and fabrication on them, but I was just trying to make the face masks of the
yeah,
superstars and pros that I liked. So
yeah.
yeah, I chunked together a couple of iffy face masks out of standard ones when I was in high school, and like for some reason that was an obsession, and it was so many years back when I saw him starting to come out with these custom masks, I was like, oh man, that's the ticket
When
right
he
there.
first started, I came up with a couple of things, and he put them in promotion, and like I did one where it looked like now it doesn't sound like a big deal, but at the time, I mean, this is my kids were like in second grade. They're in college now. Like I kind of like redid the Iron Man lines so it looked like Iron Man. Like I thought that was really cool, and then the other, just the cool cages, with all the lines and stuff.
Yeah, the
I
big
actually wrote him. I had actually told him to go down the line of like, I was like, once you saw like the old '80s style mask on the newer helmets, I was like, what if you just did all '80s? Like you never see the Lawrence Taylor one, or I always loved Pat Swilling.
The
Yeah,
linebacker.
the Saints. Remember Ricky Jackson had the lines and the whatever and the visor back in the day? I
Yeah,
was like, just remake those. I'm like, that would be so incredible. And he did it a few times. It actually worked pretty good. What I like is when he does it on the really new ones, like where he did
Doug
one with the Axioms. He did a couple of new ones. Yeah, it looked incredible. Actually, there's a guy on the Giants who I'm assuming it's Badass Mask, but he brought in like a style from 10 years ago, but you never see the Axiom have a lot of, lineman styles. It's pretty much almost all like running back styles. And he brought that in. I thought that was so clever.
yeah,
And yeah. And there's so many model helmets now. I can't remember the last time there were 4 or 5 brands. I mean, it's really cool.
yeah. It's never been that much of a personality. I mean, I shouldn't say that. It has been a big part of player personalities. So going back at least to the early '90s,
Oh yeah.
like you started.
I
To see a
got a
little bit more,
catalog. I remember getting a catalog for shut face masks, which nobody you couldn't get those back then. Somehow they gave me the catalog and I could order it from this sports store. And everybody was blown away, and that's where we started getting like the really big, like I have the double. It was like, I don't know if you remember, but what was that guy's name? Cornelius Bennett from the Bills. It was just very big. It was very long, and it was awesome. And like those, that's when I think everything, the huge shoulder pads and
yeah,
I
neck
loved all that.
rolls and
Yeah.
yeah,
I had like an egg crate thing that I duct taped to make this huge egg roll, huge neck roll. So it looked almost like I had those awesome like Donzi shoulder pads from back, like the Penn State linebackers back in the
yeah,
day.
yeah. That
Those
was
were amazing.
peak aesthetic, as they say.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
And you see it now, like you just see a linebacker or even a running back or a safety, and they have like it's out to here, and I'm just like, they're wearing the mesh half shirt jersey, and you're like, yeah, perfect. That's it right there. I love that style. That time period just looked, and my kids would get mad after a while. They're like, why do we have to wear this stupid neck roll? I'm like, because it looks cool. Just wear it.
yeah. It'll protect your neck, kind of, but not
Yeah,
really.
sort of. Not really. It doesn't really do anything. My daughter actually played. I had her play for 3 years, and one year she was incredible. She had like 13 sacks or something like that. But I had her with the neck roll and the visor, and she was like all done out.
That's funny.
She probably didn't even know. She's like, "Oh yeah, this is what you wear." I'm like, "Yeah, this is what you wear."
Yeah, dad playing dress up.
Yeah, pretty much.
All dressed up.
I'm like, no, you need the black tape, black socks, black cleats, like total ninja style. Yeah, yeah, black socks always. All my kids always wore black socks. They probably had no idea why. Later, they wanted to wear white. Actually, my freshman now, I go out and buy him like 20 pairs of black socks, and he's kind of like, Matt, Dad, everybody wears white. I go, I know, that's why you got to wear black.
Yeah,
I'm like, you got to be like Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe.
there you go.
So we're talking the fun stuff, but how does this translate over to you, NFL, large level, tons of products? Was that a big jump for you?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, yeah, it's a vast world and entity, and I think I'm still trying to figure it all out. But yeah, I'm not sure I had a big expectation going in to kind of what it would be like, and what I'm really excited about with the NFL is they're expanding all the time, right? International flag football starting to really get behind like youth football in a way that they haven't in the past. And those things are what's exciting to me. Those are the peripheral things that I don't think I expected. There's a lot of amazing like community based work that they do that doesn't get much of a spotlight that I think has been really great to be a part of. Just I think some of the campaigns around Super Bowl and draft, like again, without experiencing those two things firsthand, I don't know that I would have understood the type of engagement, that is drawn from that and how that would change my, creative brain to what do you do for fans that are already super insatiable and already want more and have everything. Like, how do you make them interested in something? So I've always been a little bit of the kind of rogue, rebellious point of view. And I'll tell you what, 1 out of 10 times that pays off,
Yeah.
The other 9 times, it's kind of like, well, let's put that on the sideline for now. And it's like, cool. I keep coming up with ideas until one of them kind of hits. And,
But that's smart. When I was at ESPN 10 years ago, you could get to the point where you would ask people, why are they using this product? And they're like, well, we're ESPN. And I used to be like, okay, but right now at that point, everybody would take in everything. But what happens when they don't? So I like that you're still pushing those ideas because there's a lot of value in that. If you just rely on what's been done before, which you could because it's the NFL, you won't know that you jumped the shark until you jump the shark, and then you don't have anything. So I think you doing that is such a great thing because it allows people to kind of ask, like, is this on brand? What do we do? Why do people like us, right? Because that could be hard when you get into that thing of just like retreading the same idea over and over again. People get used to it, but it dies. It dies eventually, and when it dies, now what do you do, right?
Yeah, there's nothing easier than doing the same thing that's tried and true and works. And I commend, I'm definitely not the only source of pushing boundaries by a long shot. There's a ton of really talented people there that do it, and have been successful at it. And so, but yeah, I think what I've learned, and I don't know that this isn't really NFL specific. This is really probably, across any organization, but like, and I think it speaks to designers and creatives, and our job and our role isn't always to just carry out and be a service. It is our job to kind of depict an uncomfortable state, for better or worse, right? It's okay to strike out and go, well, that's definitely what we don't want to do.
Yeah.
As well, in the confines of exploration.
Yeah.
But what I have learned, if I had to say one thing, it's like, you have to show people, you can't tell them.
Yeah.
Everybody kind of nods their heads when you tell them an idea that's a little out of boundaries. And it's almost kind of like, yeah, we agree. That's a cool idea. Like, good luck with that. Right. Nobody's going to take on the ownership of that thing.
Yeah.
There's too much at stake, or it's not developed enough to be provocative. So I found that instead of talking about the thing, I go make it.
Yes.
And then share it in a way where it already kind of feels real. And then you start getting people like, well, can I take that and present that to this team? Like, all of a sudden they want to present it. I think it's a sign of like success when you get folks that are like, I want to take this and I want to be the one to present this thing. That's a really good sign. And so I think I have better success with that when I just do it and show it and don't talk about it. Right. It's a lot of things get shot down from interpretation, So,
well, one of the things I think that shocked me was I always thought, as we grow up in the ranks and you get to these bigger companies and you're like, no, I don't have to show you things. We can just talk about it and you'll know what it is. And especially when you get into these big corporate companies, nobody understands what the hell you're talking about unless you can show it to them. And then they want to see that you thought it through but that's the best way to build consensus and make change. I agree with you. Like, I would always come in with what they asked for and then say, hey, here's a version that's completely different. I was at Yale and I was at the state of Connecticut, a couple of these places where they always did things the same way. And I said, all right, well, here's based on what you expected. And then this is what I decided would work. And you do it and they're blown away. And they're like, holy cow, this is basically done. And it's like, yeah. And I think that's the way you got to do it. You just have to, because you're probably like me where we're not upset. Like if you do it knowing full well it's probably not going to be accepted, parts of it will probably work its way in later anyway. So it's good to do it, right? It's always positive to think about the executed level, because especially when you work internally and every year you're working on the same things, you could take pieces from that later. It's never going to go to waste. Would you agree with that? Or
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right about that. And it's, man, have you ever gone through and just like looked back in the past and at
Oh, yeah.
some of the things that you did in such a quick hurry,
Yeah.
get it done and in front of somebody that, and then once you got past that milestone, you kind of forgot about it. It's like just sitting there and you're just this beautiful jewel that's there that you go back and stumble upon. It's pretty cool. But
Well, yeah, I mean, what ESPN Fantasy was like, how many games did we do? Like, 20 mini games, then you have the different sports games and whatever. And you would go back and then like you would look at it over time, and like you said, you'd go back to like here's the 2014 folder you're going through and you're like, oh wow, like you said, oh that's a jewel. I'm gonna reuse that. And so it's like you're building these things and it's always gonna be in your toolkit. It's just when is it gonna go in? And maybe it doesn't even go in at this thing. Maybe you use it for something at home or something you're doing for your kid or something. But I always believe those ideas, they get used eventually or something. There's something that comes of it. Maybe the way you came up with the idea is actually the best part of the idea. But yeah, that's what constantly iterating and building, and like I'm going to assume you're like me. Like when I'm in the shower or I'm just driving to work, that's where I turn off the radio, and that's where these things kind of come in. And then that's when that's where the jewels come from, because they just kind of come into your head. Is that something that happens with you, or?
yeah, it changes with age, I would say. But, um, yeah, I think I tend to just be first thing in the morning kind of person. Like
Yeah.
there's if I don't get I've gotten really good about just getting things out of my system and on paper. That's really important, or else you keep trying to reintroduce that thing at everything you do, unless you kind of get it out.
Yeah.
But kind of expelling that early in the morning has been kind of my spot. The 5 and 6 a.m. arena when the family's quiet and I can think about it, and it's something I've been dreaming about or thinking about at night. Like that's kind of where it comes to fruition for me. But
For me, there's something about being in the shower where I'm like just going through the mundane whatever, and I'm just like, how do we register for this easier? Or what would it? And I'm like, oh my gosh! And then I write it down, and then, but to your point, like you got to get it out of your head. Like I've had ideas that are stuck with me, and then I'll do them, I'll see them, and then I'll be like, oh, good. And it's got to get out, right? Like
yeah,
if it's in there, even if you never use it, you're like, I just got to get it out of there so I can see that it's not great, or maybe it's fine. But like you said, you get caught on these things, and I've done that with redesigns where I've done redesigns for teams just like I want to get it out of my head, and you put it on paper, and then you get rid of it, and you don't show it, you don't do anything about it, but it's almost like clearing out your hard drive where you're just throwing things out.
so you have a capacity. Yeah. It's the Seinfeld, effect of garbage building up in your brain, right? You only have so much capacity, but I also think it's a homage to like just the practice of sketching. And
Yeah.
when I say sketching, I don't necessarily mean drawing pretty pictures on paper with a pencil. Sketching can be acting something out. It can be putting something together with physical materials. It could be sketching on paper, whatever it is. It's kind of like, don't start jumping into tools here. Like, you
Yeah.
just need to get an idea down. And like, it's
Yes.
so hard to do today to like stay away from technology for a moment when you're in the idea processing, because there's so many tools to help you, like, to help facilitate even brainstorming and ideas, that you end up just getting caught in tools, right? Like right off the bat before you even have a chance. And then you're thinking about like, I got to organize this tool better. And then like the idea's gone. Like the DNA of that thing is gone, really.
Yeah.
And so like, I really try to get my teammates and, folks that work for me, like step away from 3D, step away from After Effects, step away from everything, and really just get comfortable putting stuff on sticky notes and paper. It sounds really archaic and but like, that is the layer that's missing in general.
Yeah.
People cannot get their ideas out quickly enough, and also spend enough time making the idea good before you start like producing it.
Yeah.
Like it really, really, and some of that comes out in writing, right? For designers and creatives, like tell folks a lot and do a lot of talks at like, colleges and colleges of art and design and things. And I'm always like, get used to writing. You never thought writing was going to be a part of your job as a creative. It is 100% a major part of everything that you do, and that you communicate, and that you pitch, and how you get ideas out and you flush them out, is through writing. And I think it's really, really important. I challenge myself to live in that space as long as I possibly can, until I can't whittle it down anymore. Then take that in and start exploring the visual treatment and those kinds of things. Like, it really streamlines, I think, the creative process, collaboration. If everybody's off in their tools, you just got a bunch of people on different tracks, doing different things. But if you can really come together around an idea, and sometimes it's a very analog thing, because you're dealing with other humans, it's conversation, it's writing, so I feel like we've kind of lost that in general. It happens in bits and pieces, but it's almost out of necessity, right? Instead of it being strategic and tactical to approach things that way. I get laughed at, by my team, because I'm the Sharpie on a Post-it note, hold it up to the Zoom call guy, right? This is what I'm talking about. This is the easiest way to communicate this idea. This is what I'm going for. And so, I get made fun of a little bit for that, but
I think you're right. I think taking it, not thinking, back in the day, I don't know if you had to do this, like they made us code, and I didn't want to write code. I was doing so many websites, but I'm like, I started designing to my crappy understanding of how to write code. And I finally was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. And I started stepping back, exactly kind of what you're saying, which is like, if I jump in, and I've done this with like logo ideas where I'll jump into Illustrator, and I'm like, no, it's too early.
Yeah.
Because now I'm just relying on the same like 5 Matt Walker ways to start a project, right? But it's funny you're saying this, because I've never said this to anyone. My whole thing, I don't know why. I don't like to write with my hand a ton. I do exactly what you're doing. I just do it in notes on Apple. And now actually what I do is I'll do it talking into the phone while I'm driving or whatever. But to your point, everything I do is written. And I get my ideas down. And then I don't know, I did want to talk to you about AI. The thing that's happened in the last, even more so in the last 4 or 5 months, I'm talking with the AI with my notes.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird thing where AI is not building anything for me, but it's like an open conversation, like with myself. Yeah. Where you're like, well, what do you think of this? And then they'll say, well, what about that? And then they'll print something out and I'll read it and I'll be like, no, that's not what I meant. And then it makes you, it kind of makes you realize like, oh, there's holes in what I'm describing.
Right.
I have to refine it. I have to refine
Somebody's
it.
reflecting it back to you like
Yeah.
the time.
So you're using the AI as just like a conversation with yourself
Yeah.
rather than just getting in a rut. And I think, like you said, like if you get in that rut of like, oh, well, I already went down this path, then you're going to stay there. And it's like, no, I don't even want to be on a path yet. I just want to get it. And I have a lot of notes and it's weird. Like I went through, every once in a while I'll go through and toss stuff, but it's right. It's funny you're saying that. Everything. And I think that's why when we get to the level we get to, as far as like, it's all strategy, right? It's the idea. It's not the execution. And I think that's actually what AI I'm learning is don't be afraid of it, because if the idea is good and refined and strong, that's what makes, if you're going to have AI later, or even just like the actual building of it. That's one of the things I didn't like about Agile. Like,
Yeah.
I like Agile when used in parts. I actually like the 2 weeks. I like the short goals. I like those things.
Yep.
But one of the things I found out about Agile long ago was I worked in fantasy, and we had another group that used Agile, and they met every day. And I used to sit there blown away, like, oh God, these guys are amazing. I forget the product at the time, but it was supposed to be the future, right?
Yeah.
And they just 10, 15, 30 people up standing there, and their notes everywhere, and they have all this stuff. And I sat in their group because there weren't enough cubicles or whatever. So I sat by them and I was so blown away. And I'm like, gosh, in fantasy, we don't do it like this at all. And then 2 years later, I look back and I'm like, we've launched 30, 40 projects, a lot of them $1 million sponsorships, this, that, or the other thing. And all they did in this group was just eliminate like 10,000 bugs from the code. And I'm like, and they're like, oh, you don't want waterfall. Waterfall's bad. This is bad. And I'm like, sometimes, like my cousin taught me this back in the day. He goes, the best way to fix your house is to have a communion or a family party at it. And then you'll work really hard to fix your bathroom or do some project.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought that's why Agile probably doesn't work, is like, you have to have these things that you're building towards, because that becomes those things. And then you look back on the year and you have 5 of those things and you're like, holy cow, the jump was huge.
Yeah.
Whereas Agile, I think, is kind of what you're saying, which is these small things, and it's fine, you're doing it, but you're not staying on the big picture, right? You're always staying on an MVP. And it's the big picture goals that push us, right? You're not going to stay late to get 3 more bugs done, but you will stay late if like we're pitching this idea for the Super Bowl and like, I'm, sorry, dear, I'll be back. I need 3 or 4 more hours tonight. This is, we're doing good stuff. Like if you have those goals, at least this is how I've always thought.
Yeah.
It pushes you to hit those milestones. Whereas if you're just in a constant thing like this, I don't think you get as high as you need to get.
Yeah,
I don't know if that was a crazy tangent, but that's how I think of what you're saying.
Investment. Like where's the investment in this going? What's the bigger idea, the bigger picture that I'm a part of? Like you got to be a part of something bigger than what you're doing. And, that's an important thing. And I think the other thing that I like to push is just that, like I have this whole thing on ownership versus collaboration. I think like collaboration gets kind of misused and abused into being this kind of constant state. And I think collaborations actually should be much more strategic and walled off, right? And I think the important thing that tends to get lost in that is the idea of ownership. And I mean true ownership and accountability for something, right? I feel like it's my thing that I'm working on. My name's on it. I'm invested in this thing, maybe not financially, but in some shape.
No, your name's on it. If your name's on it, you're invested in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be money.
It's
yours.
And what does it mean to be an owner? It's not just that somebody named you the owner. It's like I'm the person that's wakes up first thinking about this idea. I
Yeah.
control who works on this idea. When the idea is stagnant, I'm the one that pushes it forward. I'm the one
Yeah.
that pivots it. So like there's definitely a responsibility and accountability that comes with that title too.
Yeah.
And so I really force people, what are you on this project? Are you actually an owner, or are you a contributor, or are you an informant?
Yeah.
Meaning you're just informed,
Yeah.
or a consultant. It might be another term, right? You're not actually actively invested in it and contributing, but your thoughts and input are valuable, right? Like it's like really good to kind of get. I know this is my tangent now. I'm going up,
No, I'm enjoying
but
this.
like it's very
Everything you're
important.
saying I've thought of, I just never put it together like this.
And
This is
and it
excellent.
really like it lightens your load. Now I look at things and I'm like, well, I got my fingers in everything because I'm at a higher level and I oversee more things and all that. So it's very easy for me to feel like I've got all these things. But really, do I really own all these things, or do I own like 3 of these things? And
Yeah.
then I'm a contributor to the next 5 things. And then the other stuff, people just want me to consult on and want
Yeah.
information from me. Well, that easily starts to map out how much time I should be spending on all of these things and thinking about them,
Yeah.
worrying about them, and all that other stuff. Now I know the top 3 things cannot be shaken because I'm the only person holding those top 3 things together.
Yeah.
So those live and die by me. The other 5 things, there's an owner, there's a protector of those things, but I'm on the hook to contribute something to it.
Yeah.
The other stuff, speak when I'm spoken to,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
If I got to sit, I'm not going to sit in every meeting for those,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
it's a waste of my life, right? Sitting through
Yeah.
every single meeting of something where I'm intermittently a consultant on something like,
Well, that's a great
right?
management style that you have too, because so many people, bad managers, think that everything is theirs and they're the smartest one in the room. I think what you're saying, which is great, which makes sense, is if you're putting your time in at certain levels, one, you're allowing the people below you to spread their wings and learn things. And like you said, even if you're a contributor, maybe you throw out a couple of ideas here or there, but again, you're teaching them how to build something. Like the best managers build the best people, because at the end of the day, we're not looking to say all of this is mine, I did a great job. We're trying to teach them all how to fish, and then you're teaching a couple of people to open like a fishing company, and you're teaching a few of them. Yeah, it's that's the best way to manage. So it sounds like you're doing it great, because it allows the people. It also allows you to maybe look at the people, how they think, maybe pull some things in, and then the great ones actually, like, and I do this a lot. Like, not that I'm a great one, but I love to see how someone came up with something, and maybe that style I should adopt it myself. Like you're saying, like I know I wrote a lot, but I wasn't. That's one of the reasons I'm doing this podcast, is I'm seeing how people build these things that I never even thought about how much I write until you mentioned it right
Yeah.
now. I don't know if it's just we're older and we're just thinking, but it is smart to keep it. You don't go to war till all the plans are all done, right? You don't figure it out on the fly. You sit there and you say, this is what I have, this is what I need to do, blah, blah, blah. And then and I'm saying war, you know what I mean? I'm not meaning it in a real way, but just, you don't go full bore at something until you feel like you've thought it through. And everybody wants to dive in and just go. But this is probably an older thing. You and I are older. I don't know how old you are, but it sounds like you've been around for a while too. And you just don't want to waste time, right? You don't want to make the same mistakes. You want to, and you also, how it's going to work best to get your people moving in the right direction. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, yeah, and sometimes I think as a manager, we celebrate the great things about managing, and then there's also the other side of it that's, I think, challenging and difficult. Like you want to be, you don't want to be the smartest person in the room. Like you'd love somebody to come in and run circles around you, and that's not always the case. You know what I mean? So now what, right? How do I motivate people? Am I more showing by example now? And it's you're kind of moving maneuvering back and forth between those things. Or I think the biggest thing that I've kind of learned now um, is just making sure that we don't have too many people starting on something until we know what we're starting on, right? Like, let's not turn on the engine too soon. Like, it's really easy for us all to turn on the engine and start going. But this isn't a competition, and it's not all about speed and pressure all the time, right? Like, let's sit for a moment in this space of getting the idea right. And that might start with 2 or 3 people, and that's okay. It's not a collaboration of 70 people, you know?
Oh yeah.
And then once
that's
we
the
get
biggest thing in these
something
big
solid,
companies. Yeah.
then we
Don't
start to expand it and involve the other team members. But that's hard because everybody wants to be fluid all the time, right?
Yeah.
And so I think I find challenges like that, like anybody else would. And
it's so important in these big companies to try to keep things small and intimate as long as they can.
Yeah.
Because all those voices, especially the big projects that everybody wants to be involved in, like, it's good to keep that group small so you can define it. And then you let it out and you let it out. Because if you just, like you said, if everyone just dives in, now you could go in any direction. What is this? What are we doing? Yeah, it's important to
accommodate now to the masses too. It's like,
yes.
Well, in order to get through this conversation, we got to start compromising things already. And we're like, wait a minute, why are we compromising a great idea? Because there's more people in the room?
Yes.
But that's not a good reason to compromise that idea, right? Just because there are more ideas. So I think it takes a little bit of discipline to do that, and a really strong stance to be able to do that. And I'll admit it's difficult. It's difficult sometimes. And this dates back to even having an agency where things are much faster paced
but the agency world is small and it's easier. Yeah. That's kind of, so there's an interview I did with Steve Giraldi. I went to college with him. He's the head of creative for Fandom. I think there's stuff in there like this that you would appreciate and I can't remember how much was on mic and off mic, because we talked a lot about this, but he's the nicest guy I ever met, but he started telling me some like really firm stances he took. And I was blown away. And I was like, that's amazing, because he said, I try to build it like an agency. And I think anyone that worked in the agency model, although it's not perfect, it really is a great way to solve problems.
Yeah.
You keep it small team based. You have a couple of subject matter experts, and then you open it up. And that's that whole conversation we were having, which is he started in the big agency world in Manhattan, and he brought that to his places. And every place I've ever went to, I've tried to model it on the agency model too. And I think it's a great way, because agency models are about working quickly, efficiently, not wasting time. And I think that's the smart thing, that it's hard to bring that in, because he and I always talk about internal versus external.
Yeah.
And working internally is so much different, because you build something and then you don't walk away. Yep. And then the next year, and then the next, and then, like you said, now we're in this meeting and I've got to listen to these 10 people who are never going to be on this project, because we're talking about it in the initial meeting, and you're like, let's hone it in first. Let's define it. Yep. And then we'll bring you in. But when it's kind of walking a little bit and crawling, and we'll get you in like toddler age when the idea is a toddler age, not infant age.
Yeah. It's and like this the care of it, like it goes back to the owner thing, like don't make me care more about this project than you do. If you're the owner and I care more about it, and that, you're going to start seeing more of me, the more I can see that that you care about this more than I do, which is what I want. Then I'm more comfortable moving away, like proximity wise, to having some level of insight, and I don't want to use the word control, but like, influence.
Yeah.
over this thing. So you got to care. You got to care about it, and you got to understand. You got to know the business and know the problem that you're solving. It can't just be a design exercise.
Yeah.
You know, you really have to understand why we're doing this thing, who we're serving, what they're buying. Like, all those things should be informing the design decisions. And if they're not, then we're kind of in a bubble. You know, we're living in a bubble. So
it sounds crazy, but what you said is so true, is knowing the business. Everyone thinks that what we're doing is like an art project or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, this is a business. What's the goal? When does it due? Yes, we could put 100 ideas into anything, but maybe we don't have the time on this project. Like, some things, especially internally, some things are a complete rebuild, and that's fun. Some things are a slight modification. There's so many of those things that people that are those extra voices in the room, they just think we sit there and do what we want. And it's like, we don't do what we want. We look at what the goals of the project are and the needs are, and we build something around it. I always say it's like building a house, right? Somebody gets so caught up, they're worried about the wallpaper in bathroom 3, and they're up in the corner. And I'm like, we haven't even built the foundation yet and decided how many bedrooms we have. Let's slow down.
Yep.
And I worked at the state of Connecticut for 2 years, and that was like, they weren't very tech savvy to begin with. So that was even more so like, guys, this is how you build a product. And Yale, same thing. I mean, they hadn't redone their website in like 20 years. Yeah. So I had to like, guys, let's slow it down, focus on the, and again, I'm going to leave you now. I'm going to go in another room, and then we're going to come back, and you're going to see some of these things, because they don't know we make decisions for reasons, not because I like yellow or I like green or something. Like, who cares? I don't care what color it is. Like, does it work? And in many cases, like fantasy and a lot of the projects, because this is different too. A commercial is not going to be the same as building something with constant interaction and you want the answers. So that goes into it too. Like, what are we building? I know I'm tangentializing a lot, but it is supposed to be a conversation. So if I'm over talking, just let me know.
Yeah, we're good.
So,
I do have to break out and grab my daughter here in about 5, 10.
I really enjoyed this. I hope you did too. This was great.
Yeah, this is fun, man. Well, it'd be great to just talk, just catch up normal too.
Yeah, this would be great.
Sad that we had to do a podcast to chat.
Yeah, this is my backhanded way to make new friends. I'm just inviting them on the podcast.
No, that's great. I love that idea, man. I'd do it if I had the time and equipment and know-how and technical savvy. I would probably do it too. So.
It's been fun. I love learning how you're looking at this, because there's a lot of things that I never verbalize, and there's a lot of things that you've done that are better, and it's just a great way to kind of I don't know, compare. So,
and I didn't know you were you were kind of more on the product side of ESPN either. I wasn't quite sure.
So I was there for 10 years.
Sounds like fantasy.
I designed every game, every app.
That's awesome.
I did, and then I did the sales, the logos, pretty much I was the only one there, but we built so many games, and and that's a whole other thing we can get.
It feels like this huge ecosystem. I mean, we use that as a marker for our own NFL fantasy, right? Which you guys are just here, and it's like Yahoo, and then NFL.
When we started
going, how do they, they do this for all sports.
Yeah.
Too, so how do we?
It's funny, and we could talk about that one day, but that was another thing, is like, when you're building something, you have to build it for football that has a couple of stat rows, and then baseball that could have like 180 stat rows. And it's just about, and then later it was like, now it's got to be on a phone.
Well, whereas, what's so funny too is like, I tell my team this a lot. It's like, everybody who got used to just designing in 16:9 or or what have you, or designing in kind of one format, like those days are kind of gone. Like now everything's an information system. You're kind of designing a user interface for everything now. So when you do the brand ID, like even in sports, like it's like you're building it. It's like you're building a software interface. That's what it feels like.
It's the same process
so much
too.
Talking, and speaking, and
Mm-hmm.
storytelling, and there's so many dimensions to the platform. Like,
Well, even people don't realize that in interactive design, if I'm designing for, and I'm going to date myself with this reference because this is when I started, like Calvin Klein, which is very high end and very sparse. Clicking on a button in that, or clicking on a button for a Walmart app where there's 100 things in front of you, and you're just it. The way you click and what you click on and what you see, that has to, even the interaction that you're doing has to be part of the brand. Is it subtle and clean, or is it lots of, there's so many things when you get to interactive. Yeah, it's amazing.
and it's
But that's for another podcast. You have to get your daughter.
yeah, no, but I mean, I appreciate it. I came from product design. I worked at Microsoft for 8 years.
Oh, wow.
At Microsoft, and I work on their incubation team and coming up with new consumer software ideas and
Oh, that's awesome.
research and different form factors and coming up. It was a hardware and software um, incubation group. So, like, yeah, I really came to appreciate what it meant to be a user experience engineer.
Yeah.
Is what
Yeah.
they titled you as, right? And think about interaction models, human computer interaction, and how signature those need to be, especially for somebody who's like a power user on something.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, you have to design it like,
whole,
yeah, you have to simultaneously, I would think of my dad as someone just coming in and has to use logic to figure it out, and then simultaneously build the same UI for that power user. So there has to be those breadcrumbs. So everything has to be big and whatever. So the main actions are there, but then you have to have those little crumbs to get you to the other interactions. So you're always servicing like really in depth and then really simple, and it's a hard thing. And I didn't realize this later, that someone said that's what enterprise is, right? It's just really big, and
yeah.
and it's funny, my brain just works like that, though. It's, you're constantly thinking simple and easy and hard, and, you just got to get both things. But it's a dying art in a way, because I feel like when they came up with Figma and everything like that, they're like, oh, here's 70 screens. And I'm like, I liked it better Photoshop, where you're like, on this page, this is what we're dealing with. Is this a good page? Is this page worth being on? Whereas they're like, here's 70 pages. It's all fine. And I'm like, oh. So
yeah, I hear you.
But all right, well, I'm going to end it on that. I think this has been great. I really have enjoyed it. I'd love to have you on again, or talk one time, or this was a lot of fun.
Yeah, man, that'd be great. Let's talk again this summer and, try to figure out something to work on.
That'd be great. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, right.
All right. Great talking to you, Dane. Have a great day.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you, and have a good Monday.
All right. Thank you.
All right, man.
Bye.
Bye-bye.